Hey everyone, and welcome to my brand new mini series on kind of just the basics of musky fishing. This is going to be a video dedicated to newcomers who are looking to try out musky season for the first time. I get a lot of private messages on different things related to musky fishing, so I'm going to do my best to kind of break down the broad categories of what you should be considering if you're looking to get into the sport. As you can tell by the title, the first episode here is going to be covering rod and reels, so kind of what you should be on the lookout for when you're shopping for both of these items. Besides proper tools and lures, this is probably the most important thing that you are going to be shopping around for. It's kind of like your bread and butter. You can't play hockey without a hockey stick. You can't go musky fishing without a proper musky setup. So starting off with rods, I'm going to be covering length, action, power, and kind of the price point that you should be shopping around at for a musky rod. As far as entry-level price points goes, if you are shopping brand new, you're probably going to be looking at around $150 to $200, which might sound a little expensive for a fishing rod, considering you can get cheap bass rods for $50 to $100. You're going to be getting a rod that is built to handle large bait, so price point is going to be a little bit more steep compared to some of the other species of fish out there. Moving into length, this is probably the one that you're going to want to pay the most attention to in a musky rod is the length. One of the great features with these longer musky rods is a lot of them these days are telescoping, so you can get rods that'll fit in your car, fit in your truck bed, fit in your smaller storage compartments. And as far as a starting musky rod goes, I would say anywhere from 8'6" to 9 foot is going to be that ideal length that's going to pretty much do everything equally good for you. There are shorter rods out there and there are longer rods, but the biggest thing to consider with your rod length is you're going to be able to cast further and you're going to be able to have better and bigger figure eights, which is a big thing. A lot of these fish nowadays are caught in the figure eight, so having a rod that's properly suited to do those boat side maneuvers is probably the most important thing. I would actually go as far as to say that's more important than proper action and power on your rod. You want a rod that's going to be able to perform both sides like it needs to get these fish to bite. Finally, with rod power, there's really not much to choose from in the musky market. I know for like walleye and bass, you have medium light, ultra light, light, all of these different rods to consider, but with musky fishing, it's pretty much on a basis of heavy, extra heavy. Some people call it a double extra heavy, but they're pretty much just, there's a heavy and an extra heavy. There are niche musky rods out there, which I'll dive into in a little bit here, where you have like these medium light, medium action musky rods, which aren't really necessary at the starting point. I would say if you're just jumping into the sport, an extra heavy is going to do everything good for you. It's going to be great for throwing those big bucktails, those big rubber baits, but it also won't be detrimental to those smaller topwater baits or smaller glide baits. So an extra heavy, probably your best bet if you're looking to shop around for just one single rod. Moving on to reels, the categories here are a little bit more broad compared to rods, but basically you're going to be considering price point, size, and gear ratio. Maybe you already have, a bass bait caster laying around with a deep spool on there that's going to hold, a stronger line. Obviously, that'll work. As far as size goes, the industry standard right now is kind of that 400 size, or if like it's a round reel, I think it's like 6600 size for Abu. Personally, I'm always using 400 size reels. You're going to get the most line capacity, you're going to get the most torque, and you're going to get the best performance out of your reels. Also, something to mention, size is relative by brand for like Shimano, Daiwa. I think just Shimano and Daiwa, it's like 400 is the biggest size. For Abu Garcia, I think with their Beast series, it's the 60 and 50. And probably the most important thing with reel is gear ratio, the speed at which your reel is going to retrieve your baits. For an all-purpose gear ratio, I would say anywhere from the 5.0 to the 6.0 range is kind of that in-between where you're going to be able to do a bunch of different things. The lower the number in the gear ratio, so if I'm talking about a 5, that's going to be a much slower reel, versus something like a 7 or an 8, which is going to be a more high-speed reel. And a simpler way to look at that is a slow reel is going to reel in bigger bucktails a lot easier but slower. A higher speed reel will reel in those same bucktails a lot harder but a lot faster. And obviously there's price point, probably the biggest thing that you are considering. If you want to do this for cheap, obviously there are used reels out there. But for the most part, reels are kind of at a locked price in the market right now for between $200 and $300. In my personal testimony, I ran the Daiwa Lexa Win 400s last year. This is a $250 reel, so it's on their low end of their Lexa series. They have a new Pro Rex now. I think that's $300, but this is their cheapest 400 size musky reel. And I have no complaints. This thing performed extremely well. The first generation, the old black and blue one, had level wind issues, which was a common thing, I guess. I always had to get mine fixed. But with this new models, I had no problems. They make it in a bunch of different gear ratios. They make it in a slow speed. They make it in a H series, which is like the 6.3, I think, which is definitely what I would recommend. You're going to get a cool double paddle handle on here too. And then obviously they have their high speed. And that's kind of just my my diagnostics on both rod and reel for musky fishing. If you have any questions on anything, just put it down below. I or somebody else in the musky community, I'm sure, will do their best to reply to you. I'll also have links for some of these products that I showcased here in the description if you want to check them out or purchase them for yourself. With that being said, I appreciate you guys clicking on this video and watching. If you aren't already subscribed, I'd highly recommend it, as I'm going to be working this summer to post consistent musky content as best as I can. And with all that out of the way, I will see you guys very soon.